What's up, guys?
What's happening, brother?
What's happening, dude? I'm super glad we got to get out at 3 o'clock on a Monday and have some beers.
Nothing like it.
Nothing says professionalism like beers on a Monday.
Give me beers on.
Love it. So, I was just talking to a guy yesterday a little bit about the market. Obviously, like, things are changing a little bit, right? We're running into more inventory out there, stuff's sitting on the market longer. You guys are lenders. From your angle, what are you seeing out there? Like, how would you explain what's happening?
I think fear, basically. You know, I mean, I think a lot of people are in a standstill, frozen mode.
Yeah.
Which, you know, we got to figure out how to approach that one, because I don't think they necessarily should be, but I think that's the general consensus right now, that the sky might be falling as opposed to we're just kind of in a normal situation.
That's because, like, I've heard that too, where it's like, okay, well, like, it's crashing or whatever, right?
Right.
We're just going to wait until the market crashes out and then I'll buy when the market
2008
crashes.
all over again.
All over again, right? Which I mean, obviously I'm a real estate agent, so but I don't see that happening. So I don't necessarily, now it might correct. Like, we may get
it's
1%,
always going to correct at some point,
right? And we were at the we're kind of at the end of like a 10-year run, and we're normally in 8-year cycles, so it's going to correct. But I think that just means it's not going to go up 10% year over year every year.
Yeah. I think
we're going to have a year
correction.
I mean, so what do you think I mean, you can't crystal ball it, I guess. But like, what do you foresee happening?
I mean, I think that people are buying homes that they can afford. I mean, unless there's a massive like job layoffs and massive issues. I mean, San Diego, I think there's like no industry is more than 10% of the marketplace. So if there's anything that takes a big hit, San Diego can sustain that more than other counties can probably. So, I mean, I think you're always going to expect, you know, maybe a 5% decline at some point. Yeah. But it's about, if you stay in the home long enough, it's never going to matter. You know? If it's going to go up, I think 28% is the expectation over 5 years. If it goes down 5% and then you get 28, you're still up 23%. Yeah. And you got to live somewhere. So
you got to, otherwise
you live somewhere,
rent, right?
Yeah.
So that's the opportunity cost of it, is that you're still living somewhere.
Sure.
It's not like you're not living.
Yeah. Exactly.
So okay, because that's a good question, because I've had that question asked, is like, how much is it going to go down?
Phone's ringing, brother.
Oh, it's all right. Calling back. How much is it going to go down? Like in 2008, we saw 20% correction, right? But I feel like that's more of like, that's a crash.
That's a
once in a generational type.
That's a once in 100-year deal.
Yeah, that had a lot more factors going into it, right?
Yeah,
That's
people that were buying shouldn't have been buying probably, right? The economy was completely different when it came to that. I mean, the loans were completely different. Yeah. So I don't see that happening again, but I think that people have that fear of it happening again. But really what's going to probably happen is just something that would become more of controlled growth, which is healthy growth.
Totally.
It's just we haven't seen that probably in the last decade in any form or fashion, probably in the last
20 years.
Probably in the last 20 years, realistically, because we've seen, you know, a complete up, then a complete down, then a complete up. And reality is a lot of buyers that we know are younger people, and that's all they know. Yeah. They don't know the history of a real estate market over a long-term cycle. Totally. They've only seen this short-term cycle.
You nailed that on the head. I don't think I've ever thought about it that way, but I'm 32 years old. Right. For the last 16 years, there's been these crazy cycles, but that's all I remember. I don't remember what happened before I was 16, really. So like, that's all I know is it's a sharp spike, a sharp drop, and a sharp spike.
Sure, and that's all that anyone remembers.
Oh, that's a valid point then. So if that's the case, then should people be waiting to buy because of waiting to try to like correct this and time it, or?
I think the biggest overlooked thing that people miss is as a lender, where interest rates come into play. Because the reality of it is that if you're not looking to flip a property, you're always going to win. I mean, there's not a 10-year span that I think, let's say 15-year. I'd challenge you to find a 15-year where you bought and you totally lost your ass. Yeah. Because even if you bought in 2008, right before the crash, and you had that property now, you would be whole and then some. Yeah. Right? Yeah. You would be. I mean, if you bought at the worst time possible that we all know in our short-term memories, and probably even older generations know, you would be above water now. Yeah. So I think it depends on what your goal is for the property, but I think if you plan on being there, it's always better than renting.
Yeah, you're totally right. I think we called it double dutching the market. Or if you're trying to figure out like when to jump in, but if you're going to move and live in that house for 3, 4, 5 years, it's always the smart play to actually live there, right? To actually buy it. 1 year, if you're trying to flip it or time it, maybe with closing costs and things like that, maybe it's smarter to rent.
As long as you're able to be there for, let's say worst case, the market goes down, and can you ride it out another 2 years? Can you afford that payment for 5 years instead of 3? That's the worst thing that could possibly happen.
Yeah. I think
a lot of people don't think of that. And so as long as you're buying a place that you, except I mean, worst case, you're not going to outgrow it in 5 years. Then
one of the things and what I started to say, and I got a little sidetracked there, is that people don't look into the impact of interest rates as much, though.
Yeah.
I mean, that's on a payment level, that's so much more important than a slight reduce in the price, right? I mean, it doesn't matter if you have a 5% drop or even a steady, and if your rate goes up 1%, that's going to kill your payment, your affordability, and what you can actually do with it.
There was a New York Times article too, and I think it was like, it would take, maybe you said it was like a 10% crash in the market to offset a 1% interest rate.
It's about that as far as payment goes. And that's when people buy a home and they rent a home and they're comparing payments. Like, they don't really care the house is worth $650 or $550 or whatever. They care about they can make a $2,800 a month payment, and that's either going to go towards a mortgage or towards their rent. And so that's going to have a bigger impact than anything else is going to have an impact.
What's more likely, right? The market crashing 10%. Or interest rates going up 1%. I would argue that interest rates going up 1%
would be almost impossible for a market to. I mean, outside of 2008, is that to market to go down in 10% in a year would be insane.
That would be a catastrophe.
The rates have gone up already this year of 1%. After the election, when Trump got elected, they went up almost 1% in like a few month period.
I think the last 9 months, I believe, were over 1% increase.
Yeah. And so that
is not just more realistic, it's actually occurred.
Yeah, it just happened, and it's completely plausible that it could happen again, right? So it's a lot more likely that we'll see a 1% increase, because we're at about, what, 5%?
Yeah,
4.75, 5%.
Low fives,
Historical average for interest rate is
about 6.5%, 7%.
6.5%, 7%. We're not even back.
Once again, depends on whose history, because younger generation different, older generation.
Typically 8% is the barrier of a low interest rate and a high interest rate. 8%.
Anything under 8 would be considered
low. High is considered a high interest rate market. And so,
and think of the impact that would have on a payment. Right? It's way more than if you're waiting for that $500,000 house to drop to 485, 450 even. You know, going away 8% it just means you can't, even if you would, you probably can't get pre-approved for that anymore.
Right, because now the interest rate's up and your purchasing power is way down. So what if the issue, and you guys are lenders, so I'm glad I'm asking this, but what if the issue is down payment, right? Because that's, to me as a millennial, right, 32 years old or something like that, okay, I'm on board, I'm ready to buy, but I don't have 20% down. What's the issue there? Especially on a $500,000 house, which is below average here in San Diego.
That's the biggest thing. I mean, how many people in San Diego, how many couples are making $150,000 a year? A lot that they can afford to buy. But how many have saved up, $100 grand that they can put down? Not many people can do that, and that's the biggest hurdle people are finding. So it's a cool thing is there's a lot of programs that can help people.
I mean, to add to that, there's roughly 1.5 million renters in San Diego. And I believe, based on MBS Highway, who does more statistics than any of us on this, that there's approximately 300,000 that could afford to purchase.
Got it.
Now they might not have the down payment, but they could afford to.
Just based on income,
So then can you go less than 20% down on like your loan?
For first-time home buyers, you can do 0 down. There's tons of down payment assistance programs.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So
the FHA 3.5%, and so there's other government-backed ones. So you're talking even lower than that.
Yeah, there's grants that will come in, because I mean, say you have FHA or conventional, there's grants that will come in and pay the down payment and the closing costs. So you can literally come in with nothing.
Oh wow!
At the very least, you ask for seller-paid concessions or something like that to help you get you in. So I mean, it's more about educating those people, because if you have 300,000 people that could be purchasing and they're renting, I mean, that's not really a way to build wealth.
And I think that's one of the things that have held people back right now is that, I mean, you've seen it as an agent. If people, maybe a year ago, people were asking for seller credits, you had 10 offers, you're gonna be like, no way.
Not
And now with the market slowing down, you're gonna be more likely to accept giving them 10 grand to get the house sold versus doing another price reduction of 30 grand or whatever.
And that's what I'm seeing out in the field too, is it's even though prices are high on an 8-year, 10-year run compared, when's the best time to buy would have been 2012. But when's the second best time today, right? And so even though prices are high, interest is so low, and because there's a little bit of inventory trickling back to the market right now, buyers actually have more options than they did 2 years ago, because they're not in these multiple offer situations where they're going way over often. There's 3 houses to choose from instead of 3 people going for the same house. So the buyers have a little bit more flexibility there to get closing costs covered or something like that.
I mean, I think your average listing agent would probably tell you they were having 7 offers on a house. I mean, how many were you guys getting?
And
I think now they're they're hoping to get 1 or 2.
Yeah, I mean, I think we always joke around, but it's like it was really easy to be a real estate agent the last like 5 years because you just listed a house and there was multiple offers.
Yeah,
like,
you just had to get that listing.
You just had to get the listing. Now you have to get the listing and then you have to actually price it right and sell it because buyers have options, so you're gonna have to negotiate.
Well, you also have to convince your seller to price it right.
You're telling me
because they're used to the inflated price.
They're used to the inflated price, and they saw that the neighbors they sold for 10%, so I'm gonna sell for 10%.
Yeah, 6 months ago they sold for.
But they don't know that the market slowed down a little bit, right?
Sure,
so it's a whole different thing. So now, okay, so if there's down payment assistance, what about the other spectrum? Like, because in San Diego, the average price is $580,000, but really, like most homes are $650,000 to $850,000, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of San Diego.
If you want to buy a 4-bedroom house that you're going to grow in for the next 10, 15 years.
So, because like now, can you do the same thing with jumbo loans, or do you always need 20% for jumbo loans?
You can't do down payment assistance on a lot of them. You can do it up to $650,000 basically.
Yeah.
But there are programs you put as little as 5 down to go up to an $850,000. So you could buy around $900,000 with only 5%.
With only $45,000.
Yeah.
Into your probably at least your family home. I mean, because now if you're talking $600,000 plus, those are the 4-bed, 2.5 bath.
Yeah, that's the home that you're going to be in 15 years, which is, again, I mean, you can't lose in real estate if you're buying for 15 years, you know. And if you're buying a 1-bedroom condo studio and you're going to be there for 2 years, then.
And a lot of people don't realize the options too, though. I mean, because 401ks can get pulled on.
Yeah.
I mean, you can borrow against those or take a hardship withdrawal, which is the term, but it really is not a hardship. But you can utilize and tap into these things. And I think with the stock market where we're at right now, and I'm not a stock guy, but I watch enough to see it, that it's not a bad idea to use that money towards real estate right now.
Yeah.
And you can do that. I mean, that can become your 5% on these jumbo programs.
Right.
And most people think you have to have 20% down on a jumbo, 10% jumbo, and for the most part, they're right.
Yeah.
You know, most banks do require that, but there are avenues out there that'll do as little as 5% down on those.
Yeah, got it. Okay. That's awesome, dude. Well, I mean, it sounds like that even though the market's correcting a little bit, it's one of those things that if you're on the fence, it's still a good time to buy if you're considering holding for longer than 2.5, 3 years. And or you're interest rate sensitive and you're right on the fence and the purchase price is gonna, you know what I mean? Every 0.5% your interest rate goes up, you're losing purchasing power.
Sure.
So if you're right on the fence, even though prices are high, it's probably still a good time to jump in.
And what we're talking about a lot of the time is not people that are selling and then rebuying, right? We're talking about people that are renting.
Yeah.
So I mean,
first time.
so I mean, we'd love to have that debate on how it's better to rent, you know, than buy. You know, I sold my last house 2 years ago, and I haven't bought yet, and I'm kicking myself because in the last 2 years I would have gained a ton of money, but I'm still in a market. Well, I'm actually in escrow right now. You know that.
Yeah.
So I mean, I'm still, you know, I do what I'm preaching on that I'm buying a house right now, and as soon as I close on that one, I'll probably start looking for a house here because that one's in Oregon.
Yeah, that's right. I think you said that. So what kind of tools do people have? Because like I run into people all the time that have questions. I go out and show property. I mean, it's just, I'm in real estate, obviously, and then I link them up with lenders, and then they have questions about getting pre-qualified. But is there somewhere or some side of like tool where you can be like, hey, all right, price is $600,000. What are my payments going to look like? Should I rent versus buy type thing?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we have a really cool tool that will show you how many years you're going to live there for, what the current rates are, and then kind of what the estimated rent appreciation is going to be. I think they're averaging 3.3% a year in rent increases in San Diego.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
You'll see, I mean, you're going to pay more on the mortgage up front, but it's going to catch up. And think about all the money you're putting into basically a forced savings account and putting it down on the equity of your home. Yeah. Every month you're chipping away at it.
I think that's a key term, forced savings account.
Yeah.
Because for most people, we don't save, right?
Yeah.
We spend what we make.
Yeah.
And that actually helps you create wealth because
and that's why 401ks work, because people put in they take out 4%, they don't ever see it, and all of a sudden they wake up 20 years later and they've got $1 million in their account.
I mean, we'd probably all be broke as fuck if we didn't have a forced savings account to a degree,
1,000%.
right?
Or something, right?
So a house and a 401k are two of the major ways to do that.
Yeah.
Because
the easiest, like, brainless ways of doing it.
Yeah. I mean, especially for W-2 employees who have that money taken out even before they get the check type thing, 401k and then real estate, right?
Yeah, you know the number one common denominator between any millionaire out there is that they own a primary residence.
Real estate.
And I mean, of course, you know, a millionaire is going to own a primary residence, but we're not talking about multimillionaires. We're talking about people who have become a millionaire probably through equity gain in their home. Yeah. So it is probably a result of that to a degree.
So I think that's everyone's goal. I mean, not everyone needs to be worth $50 million. I mean, if you have $3 to $5 million in your retire, you're going to have a great retirement.
Totally. I think I saw somewhere that it's like you only need 3.5 million or something to live off the dividends and make 6 figures off the dividends.
Oh, yeah.
So basically never have to reinvest that money. You just let it work for you.
that's the
To
goal.
have a 6-figure income the rest of your life.
Yeah.
So anything above $3.5 million is now getting into like luxury status. So
Sure.
And how do you get there? You buy a house for $600,000 today. 30 years from now, you own it free and clear, and it's worth 1.2 million,
Yep.
1.5 million,
And then
and
you
you've got a
got
foreign
$400K.
cash,
Absolutely.
and you're done. You
Yep.
know,
Yeah.
30. You're 30 years old. You retire at 60. You're
Almost
good to
went
go.
down there.
You know?
Yeah. Almost had a spill.
Almost down.
Spillage issue.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm getting low. I need another one. Well, dude, I think this is pretty dope for a completely unscripted Monday afternoon visit to Naughty Barrel. I think that was a pretty chill. I think we covered all the basics. So, awesome, guys. Well, I'm glad we got to link up. Cheers.
Cheers, boys.
Let's do this again. Yeah.